This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
It's my music.
You're listening to Music of the Mat on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Music of the Mat, the podcast devoted exclusively to the music of pro wrestling. It's all part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I'm your host, Andrew Rich. This is episode 155, and it's about the themes of Keiji Mutoh and the Great Muta. And today I'm joined by a returning guest here on the show. He is one of the hosts of the Emerald Flowshow, also on the VOW network. It's Gerard Di Trolio. Hello, Gerard.
Hey, Andrew. I made it.
Yeah. You messaged me earlier today that your voice was not feeling up to snuff, unfortunately. And I was like, okay, we can postpone this thing. And then you messaged me later on that your voice was feeling a lot better. And, well, here you are. So we'll get through this thing, Gerard, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, definitely. I've been sick for the first time in several years. Possibly COVID. I don't really know. So that was just a big whammy for me. But I'm recovering. So that's all good. And, podcasting actually keeps my mind off of things.
Yeah. Well, you were just on, actually, a few months ago on the Music Memories episode. And normally I don't have someone back on this quickly. But I put the call out and you answered, and here we go again. And you're the right man for the job here for sure, given your extensive history of watching Japanese wrestling and the fact that you've covered Muto on your own show, the Flow Show, the past couple of years. He's been in Noah, so it's a good fit for sure, Gerard.
Yeah, I mean, despite the last couple of years in Noah, I still have Muto in my top 10 of greatest wrestlers of all time. So he means a lot to me, and I'm excited to talk about him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I figured, there's no better time to do a Muto episode than now, given that he's retiring from wrestling. And you can put retiring in quotes, I think, because it's Keiji Mutoh and he's a wrestler, and these wrestling retirements sometimes don't tend to stick. But his last match is going to be against Tetsuya Naito in the Tokyo Dome. Actually, the day that this episode comes out will be the day of that show. So by the time people are hearing this, that match will already have happened, and hopefully this is it for him, because the man is 60 years old, and he can barely walk. I mean, he was in a wheelchair leading up to the match, for crying out loud. This has to be it, but, I mean, you never know. The man's ego is bigger than Tokyo Dome itself, I think, Gerard, so you never know with these things.
Absolutely, his ego is bigger than the Tokyo Dome, but, when he first when questions were rose about, like, how healthy he really, when he injured his hip early last year, I believe. Originally, he said, "Screw the doctors. I'm not going to listen to them." But then a few months later, he's like, "I'm going to go on my retirement countdown." So I do think it is legit. I do.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Yeah. But regardless, I mean, the retirement of Keiji Mutoh is still a pretty massive deal. I mean, it's Keiji Mutoh, for God's sake. What can you say? The man is a certified legend, both in Japan and abroad. One of the three Musketeers in New Japan with Chono and Hashimoto. The list of accolades is a mile long, as is the influence. I mean, the Shining Wizard alone. How many U.S. indie wrestlers used that move in the early 2000s? A whole lot of them. So, to the point of parody. And, of course, there's the moonsault as well, which he didn't invent, but he was got to make it popular for sure. And the Pro-Res Love hand gesture, and the Great Muta character, which was also copied to death, and the Muta scale of blood, for God's sake. Like, it would take way too long to do a full Muto career retrospective, which is why we're only doing the theme songs, but he's a very massive figure in wrestling history, and if this is actually it for him, then it's quite the chapter being closed, Gerard.
Absolutely, and this is something that I said before, but I want to say it again, and I just want to get this in here. With Muta retiring, the 90s are finally over.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, Chono is done, Tenryu's done, the Pillars are all done, Hashimoto's gone, Inoki and Baba are gone, who else? Hansen, he's done, I'm trying to think, Onita is still kicking around, but yeah, as far as like New Japan and All Japan, like the top tier guys of that era for them, yeah, Muto was like the last guy left, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I think that's really historic for that because that's obviously like the first Japanese wrestling that I watched.
Yeah, I mean, I can't call myself a big Muto fan, but I've seen enough of his matches that I like a lot. Especially during the '90s where he still had his knees working, and he does, regardless of era, I think, always have that superstar aura about him that just draws you in, both as Muto and Muta, and he's been able to maintain it throughout his entire career, pretty much. Now, again, his ego has certainly helped him maintain that superstar aura and presence. Of course, the famous Tanahashi quote, Muto was always going to make the match about Muto. That's the detriment. That's where someone like a Kaito Kiyomiya is going to suffer. Him having to literally chase down Muto after the match, their last match together, and because he verbally submitted and just left the ring immediately. Didn't want to give him any more time, and Kiyomiya had to just literally chase the guy down for any semblance of a rub. So that's the problem right there of working with a Muto, and it's the give and take where, yes, you have Keiji Muto, you have the superstar, you have the icon, but is he going to do what's best for you, or is he going to do what's best for Muto? It's difficult, Gerard, for sure.
Yeah, but what works in his advantage is that he is technically probably the biggest draw in Japan, or arguably, at least for Noah, that's not in New Japan. So he can do whatever he wants. And I say this is that when Muto has had to, like, when he was running All Japan, there were times when he stepped back to put over Kawada, to elevate Kojima. But if you give Muto an inch, like I think Shinshiro Takagi did when he had like Cyberfight sign him to Noah, he'll take a mile.
Yes, for sure. And well, speaking of miles, that's what this retirement tour's been. It's been a lot of miles, a lot of stops on this thing with Great Muta's final singles match, Great Muta's final match ever, Muto's last New Japan match, Muto's last match in Sheboygan. It's just so many stops in this thing, but it's drawing, it's making money. So again, it's hard to argue with that kind of thing, I guess. There, so.
And I mean, I think this show will outdraw Wrestle Kingdom, or this year's Wrestle Kingdom too.
That's what they're saying. Yeah, I think the number I saw being touted is 30,000 or so, which is a little bit more than Wrestle Kingdom this year. Yeah. Now, have you ever seen Muto live in any capacity?
Unfortunately, I have not.
Okay, because I saw him as Great Muta at the MSG show mini weekend a few years ago. He was in the Honor Rumble at number 30, and he was in town anyway. And I thought, a lot of people thought, it'd be cool if Muta was like number 30 in that thing, and he was. And he came out and got a massive reaction, and yeah, it wasn't like a proper match or whatever, it was just a battle royal, but I can still say I saw the Great Muta live. And he was also just in AEW last year too, at the Grand Slam show, when he came out to help Sting and Darby in the match, and got a massive reaction there too. I mean, all he did was just come out and do a dragon screw leg whip and green mist a guy and pose with Sting pretty much. But listen, star power and charisma go a long way, especially when your knees and hips can't. So there you go, Gerard.
Absolutely. And I think, it's just so weird to see him sort of get away with that in Japan, because that's not necessarily always how things play out there. And we've seen other stars like consciously move themselves down the card, but Muto got this opportunity to run at the top in a condition that few have really wrestled in at the top in Japan.
Yeah. So let's get to the themes here, and we'll do this in two parts. First, we'll do the Muto themes, then we'll do the Muta themes, just to make it easier, I think. And if we did want to honor Muto properly here, Gerard, we could have done this over the course of 3 or 4 episodes. Really stretch it out with Keiji Muto's singles themes, Keiji Muto's tag themes, Great Muta's singles themes, Great Muta's tag themes. Just really get the most out of this thing. But we'll keep it to just one episode here, Gerard, just to make it easy.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's sort of unique, just the sheer number of themes he's had. I know he's had 2 personas, but even as Keiji Muto, he's had a lot of themes if you compare him to a lot of other superstars.
Yeah, there are a lot of Muto songs out there, folks. Just take my word for it. There are a ton of them. So what we'll do is we're going to talk about 7 Muto themes and 7 Muta themes each. And these are his most well-known songs, his most important songs, or themes of interest, I think. Because if we played all of them, it would take like 2 or 3 episodes entirely there, Gerard. So we'll cap it at 14 here. Let's get to it then. We'll start off with the first Keiji Mutoh theme, his earliest theme by my research. He started wrestling in 84, so this is around the mid-80s, around that time. This is by Linda Henrik and Jun Sato. It's an instrumental version of a song called Champion at Heart. This is a very snazzy, zippy 80s song. Saxophones leading the way, the strings in there. Very upstanding and heroic sounding. It's called Champion at Heart, of course. It all fits a very young, go-getting, athletic Keiji Mutoh with fresh, supple knees and hips there, Gerard. It's very fitting, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. Like, I just made a note to myself. Very 80s.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you were to say, like... you know, this could be like the theme of a TV show in the 80s or something like that. It's sort of the feeling I got when I listened to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the lyrics in the normal version are even more heroic and on the nose, talking about fighting for what you believe in, fighting through adversity, following your dreams to victory, I'm a champion at heart, etc., etc. And I'm a little surprised they didn't use that version because it's very over the top and heroic there, but they didn't for whatever reason. It's funny, looking at Mutoh's entire catalog here, not that many lyrics, really, all told. I think the next song definitely does, but looking at the other songs here, no lyrics at all whatsoever. So, yeah. Yeah, Champion at Heart, again, very babyface, very 80s and heroic and all that stuff. So, lyrics or not, it fits for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of like the Mutoh character at the time. Like, obviously, the high-flying, a lot of heart, babyface. Hashimoto was the stoic one, and Chono was the technical but sort of bland, although that would change later, wrestler, so it really fit him where he was of the Three Musketeers.
Mm-hmm, definitely, yeah. So up next, we're going to go to Europe, the band, not the continent. They did Mutoh's theme from in between his first excursion and his second one, off of the album The Final Countdown. It's The Final Countdown. So, of course, this is best known as Bryan Danielson's ROH theme, but many years before that, this was Mutoh's theme. And, Final Countdown, it's an iconic song, obviously makes for a great theme, as you saw with Bryan, but it started first with Mutoh in the late 80s, when it was a lot more contemporary back then. But I think regardless of whoever uses it, it's hard not to get pumped up to this song, Gerard. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say about this song other than, like, just so iconic and a perfect wrestling theme? And, I think it sort of worked. I mean, at the time, for him doing his weird sort of sci-fi space lone wolf gimmick.
Right.
I think it fit as sort of something a little more like epic and spacey, like space opera or something.
Yeah, Space Lone Wolf, for those that may not know, this is when Muto came back from his first excursion, and they gave him like a space age gimmick with like a silver jacket and the shoulder pads and the quote-unquote space helmet, which was just like a motorcycle helmet. So, but still, it was a space gimmick, and the Final Countdown is a space-themed song. You know, it's got an actual countdown in there with a rocket ship, and it's got references to Venus and Earth and light years and whatnot. So, yeah, it's appropriate not just as a great entrance theme, but for the gimmick too, of course, Gerard.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's funny because they used a main like crossover like well-known song with Europe, and I just learned this recently. It could be apocryphal, but it sort of makes sense. Is that Inoki was like, "Yeah, put the motorcycle helmet on when you come out because I'll try to get a motorcycle helmet company to sponsor us."
Yeah, one of those classic Inoki stories we all know and love so much, for sure. Yeah, but Final Countdown, they brought it back. I know a few times later on special occasions. It's like an intro to Holdout. I saw a clip from his 30th anniversary match in Wrestle 1, I think, came out to it first, and for the last Kiyomiya match last year, he used it again, because that was the first match in the retirement series. Now, I have no idea if Cyber Agent actually paid Europe for the rights to play it, of course. It's pretty expensive, but still, it's a cool theme, and, Muto is Muto. He's going to get his way regardless, I think, there, Gerard, so there you go.
Given the fact that they're a streaming service like Abema, they may well have paid that fee.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, they got deep pockets, so it's pretty likely, I suppose. Yeah. So Muto theme number 3 here, and this one he had after returning to New Japan from the original Great Muta run in America there. He had this one from 1990 to the mid-90s, I believe, so that includes the first G1 Climax Finals against Chono, and his first IWGP title reign as the Great Muta. This is by Osamu Suzuki, and it's called Holdout. This is one of those songs where, despite my feelings towards Muto nowadays, when I hear it, I can't help but get pumped up. I mean, that opening ramp up into the main riff, that and the shredding guitar solos, it's not just a good theme, I think, it's a badass theme too. The main melody sounds, a bit fanciful with the keyboards, but when those guitars take over, it's pretty badass. And it's a very different vibe than Champion at Heart and Final Countdown, that's for sure, Gerard.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it's iconic. To me, it sounds like a Japanese wrestling theme of a big star. They just have that feeling. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it, but all the iconic themes from whether it's like Hashimoto, Chono, or any of the Four Pillars or anything like that. There's just something about it that's like, this is an iconic theme, and I think it's really telling that they went back to this for Muto's run in Noah, because they were obviously trying to get lapsed fans, and this would have been the music that he was using when he had the most eyeballs on him in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good example of like the multitude of Muto themes, because there's a prototype version of this, there's the main version here, there's a version called Holdout A, and now the current version he has, which is the one in Noah, the 2021 version. So yeah, a lot of variations on this, similar to like The Rock or Undertaker, where there's all these different theme songs that are variations on the same basic melody, really. But yeah, this is one of those songs that has really endured a lot over the years and is still going today. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I actually quite like the 2021 version with the little intro and then like some of the effects towards the end of the song. I think it's because, over the years, when songs and themes keep getting remixed and remixed, they don't always get remixed in the greatest of directions. But I thought they did a really good job here with the 2021 version.
Yeah, I think it's pretty great too. Yeah, it's more majestic, I think, with the longer intro and whatnot. But it fits because Muto at this point has reached ultra legend status. So making the song more majestic and quote unquote legendary, it fits for sure. It fits. So
yeah, definitely.
So in the mid-90s, Muto gets a new theme, and he has it until the end of the decade, around 2000, 2001, I believe. This is by Taketa Magic Orchestra, and it's called Triumph. Mom, I want the final countdown. We had the final countdown at home. The final countdown at home. But no, seriously, the main melody here is very similar to Final Countdown, and there's a similar, I think, epic feel to this one as well. I think. I mean, Holdout was, I think, more badass than epic in my opinion. This is more epic and well, triumphant, of course, and keyboard based, much like Final Countdown. I mean, it's a good song. Don't get me wrong, but we know where this one is coming from for sure, Gerard.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe some they got busted. Maybe someone sent an angry letter to TV Asahi, and so they had to come up with this song. I will say I think I have some interesting feelings about this song. I think the sort of like NWO version is better of all things, although as a song, but I have mixed feelings when I hear this because I just remember watching New Japan tapes from this time, and it was just like the whole like Muto and the NWO angle and him and Chono and their like gradual breakup. It just sort of dragged on so long, not unlike the American version of the NWO. So like the memories it gives me are just like, this is like not the greatest of wrestling, and this is sort of when New Japan sort of started to fall off their 90s peak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned NWO Japan. There is an NWO Japan version of this song. It's like a rock remix of it. And I think I like that version even more than the normal one, to be honest with you. It sounds a lot less like a Final Countdown ripoff and more just like a badass rock song befitting the NWO. And I love the NWO Japan intro in and of itself, too, with like the long build-up of the strings and the, NWO. I prefer that version, I think, more than the normal one. But yeah, maybe because I don't have any memories of watching New Japan in that era, I don't have the I guess the PTSD that you might have with this song. But it's a fine song.
Well, that's a strong term, but it was definitely like something where you like, your eyes glaze over and stuff like that. But.
That's fair enough. But yeah, between the two of them, I picked the NWO version myself. So there you go.
Yeah.
Up next, we're going to look at Muto's final theme as a member of the New Japan roster, because he made the jump to All Japan in 2002. This is by NJP Unit, and it's called Outbreak. I'll say this about Muto, he has a penchant for epic intros to his songs, and this one of the most epic, I think. I mean, the piano and the choir and the pulse in the background, then the Terminator music kicks in, and then it all just pops off, and, a lot of Muto's themes are very similar in terms of how they're made, with the shredding guitars and the keyboards and whatnot. It's all kind of just from the same mold, but I'll be damned if it doesn't work, and this one works really well, Gerard. It's a great song.
Absolutely. I love the piano in this one. I love how it goes all over the place, and I love like sort of the wild piano at the end of the song too. Just really adds to it alongside the guitar. And I was talking about my feelings about the previous song, and this song is just all warm memories for me, because this would have been I guess I would have first seen Muta in WCW in 2000, but my first like real-time following Muto in Japan when he returned in 2001, this was his theme, and like him winning the Triple Crown and this music playing just is like seared into my brain. I'll never forget it. And so to me, like, this is my favorite Muto theme of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the song comes, I think, at a very pivotal time in Muto's career, because it's after NWO Japan is done, and it's like, okay, what's next for Muto? And he shaves his head, which was a good thing to do, because if you ever see those matches of his in like late 90s, 2000, that hair is gone. So he shaves the head, he grows the goatee out, he forms a new stable, BATT, Badass Translate Trading, and he starts using the Shining Wizard. And the Muto that we know of today is born. It was a complete reinvention and reinvigoration of his career. He's winning the Triple Crown, winning all sorts of Observer Awards, and a new theme like this, which, still harkens back to songs like Hold Out and Triumph, but is still a new composition, is still a step up from those. I think it's part of that reinvigoration for sure, Gerard.
Absolutely, and I think it just, I don't know, it's like I guess like the character looked like it had more of an edge than he actually had, but I thought that the theme song really sort of complemented it, because it was a little, I think, edgier than some of the other themes.
Yeah, and like I said, this was also his last theme before he went to All Japan. Him and Kojima made the jump together in 2002, and that was a massive deal when it happened. So, yeah, in a way, this super epic theme song does feel like the culmination of his time in New Japan before he leaves. So if you think about it that way, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, Muto theme number 6 here, and this is his first proper All Japan theme. It's by Heart Below Band, and it's called Trans Magic. So I believe this is Muto's longest-serving All Japan theme. He had it for, I think, about 7 years-ish. So all the top years of his run in All Japan. And yeah, again, it's not breaking the mold in terms of what we've had so far. Cool intro, keyboards, big rock guitars, frenetic, energetic pace to it, the whole 9 yards. And to be honest, Gerard, I'm kind of running out of things to say with these songs because they're pretty similar. They'll kind of blend together at points, but still, it's a good song at least, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a step down. It doesn't. I don't really think it's not bad, but I just don't think it sort of stands the test of time, whether it be for nostalgic reasons, like Outbreak does for me, or just sort of like that epic feel that Holdout has. But I just think, especially like I mean, Muto sort of just doing his thing in All Japan while, and a couple years into it, he does step back for a while before stepping back up again to win the IWGP title again in main event Wrestle Kingdom 3 and everything like that. So, it's not really like a song that you'll sort of associate with like big epic Muto matches too. And I think that means something when you look back at these themes like years later.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, to be fair, it's not like Muto really lends himself to a wide variety of musical styles. It's not really a hip-hop guy or an emo guy or screamo death metal. Like, this music just feels like it fits him the best, I think, as the classic wrestling icon, as the main hero, etc. And as a result, we won't get a lot of variety with his themes. And when you're doing a podcast like this, that can be difficult to, really dive deep into analysis for each one, because they all kind of tend to, mush together after a while. So,
welcome to BreezeLine, where the sky's the limit thanks to better internet. With lightning fast speeds up to 1 gig, you can game like a boss, stream like a pro, and watch like there's no tomorrow. Stream, watch, post, send, and trend. Do it all with our fiber-powered network, bringing you reliable, fast internet. Welcome to BreezeLine. Visit breezeline.com for latest offers. Service subject to availability. New customers in select areas only. Visit breezeline.com for details.
Wendy's 2 for $6 lets you mix and match some of our best items, like Dave Single with a 10-piece crispy nugs, medium strawberry lemonade with a spicy chicken sandwich, spicy chicken with a Dave Single with a strawberry lemonade, strawberry lemonade, if you're into that. Chicken Sam, crispy nugs, strawberry lemonade, Dave's, nugs, Sam. Whew! Pick what you want at a price you want. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's 2 for $6. For a limited time, price and participation may vary at U.S. Wendy's. On the card only. Single item at regular price.
But that's the problem of having just kind of similar styles of themes, I guess, Gerard.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's some of the issues that you get into with Muto.
Mm-hmm. And again, to be fair, he's not the only guy with this problem. I remember doing the Rey Mysterio episode with Rich Craich a few years ago, and I mean, there were like 10 Latin hip-hop songs in a row. And after a while, it was like, exactly. I'm tapped out. We got nothing. What's there to say about this? We've heard it before. So, yeah, there are a lot of guys out there who have, a bunch of theme songs that are all kind of in one particular lane. And it's hard to really, dive deep into, each one if they all kind of blend together there. So, yeah. But anyway, one last Muto theme here, and this is his last All Japan theme until when he left in 2013 for the Wrestle 1 Exodus. It's again by Osamu Suzuki, and it's called Symbol. So we're hearkening back to, I think, both Holdout, because that melody sounds a lot like Holdout, and Triumph, because of the 80s keyboards. But, like I said with, Transmagic, Gerard, I'm tapped out on the big analysis here of these Muto themes. Again, it's a good song. It works for Muto. Beyond that, I'm pooped. Got nothing else, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like this. I hadn't heard this song in a long time. Getting back to that, these were sort of the lean years for him in All Japan. So it had been quite some time since I listened to it, and I'm like, actually, I kind of like this, and I think it's better than Transmagic. It's fun. It seems a little more like, electronic-y, like sort of like trying to be hip, sort of thing. And, and you're right, this is the lean years of him in All Japan, and, towards those last couple of years, he wasn't even working a full-time schedule in All Japan anymore. So, this is sort of like, I can't say this is one of his absolute best themes, but I think, it's a hidden gem Muto theme, right? Like,
oh yeah, it's good.
If you haven't heard it, give it a listen. Yeah.
Yeah, all these songs are good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's fun to listen to them back to back and, and enjoy them, of course. But the problem with this show is, when you have to listen to them back to back, you have to take notes too, and you have to write down stuff about each one. And it's like after a while, when you've exhausted the, epic rock guitar keyboard stuff, it's like, where else are you supposed to go, really? So yeah, it gets a lot more difficult down the home stretch. But I will say, this is, a very notable song again in that it's the last Muto theme before he made the big jump to Wrestle 1 in the Exodus there, and that's pretty notable. And also notable is that it's a reunion with Osamu Suzuki, who made Holdout, and you can definitely hear the Holdout influence with the guitar work at certain points, but again, I am ready, more than ready, for a change in tone and style here, Gerard.
Let's go.
Yes, let's go. Gonna go now to the second half here, the Great Muta themes. Great Muta was born in WCW in March of '89. He was billed as the son of the Great Kabuki because his manager, Gary Hart, used to be the manager for Great Kabuki, and they had a falling out, and Hart needed a new client, and entered Great Muta. Same gimmick pretty much, just a new guy, and Muta's excursion in WCW would last about a year, and he would feud with all the big names like Luger and Flair and, of course, Sting, and win the TV title and all that. His first theme is by John Keelior and Orlando Kimber from the Bruton Music Library. This is Luminous Forces 1. So a big change up here. Going back and comparing the Muto themes, specifically from the 80s. It's way different than Champion at Heart and Final Countdown. Different in terms of composition. No rock guitars, no big 80s keyboards. Different in terms of energy and tempo. It's a lot more slower paced, a lot more subdued. It puts an emphasis on the East Asian background, which the Muto songs did not do. And it's different in terms of the mood it sets. And that mood is mysterious and spooky and altogether ooky. So it's a total 180, not just from the old Muto themes, but all the Muto themes, I think, Gerard.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they were going to some sort of, mysterious warrior from the East thing here with what the Great Muta gimmick was, and they gave him the right music for it. I thought that this actually didn't turn out to be quite as stereotypical as some of Muta's subsequent themes in terms of sort of just like the traditional Japanese music.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at the later WCW Muta themes, he's got songs like Tokyo Takeaway and Warlords, Pacific Zone.
Yeah.
I mean, those are much more, I think, on the nose and stereotypical East Asian music for sure. But it all started with this one, I think. And if you're going to establish that Muto and Muta are different people in general, I mean, this is a good way to do it, and it's also a good way to establish that, again, Muta is mysterious, he's dangerous, he has the face paint, he has the mist, he has the martial arts, and he has the creepy music, which, again, has that, touch of the East Asian stuff in there, and not all Muta themes have that, but again, it's late 80s WCW, it's not a big surprise that they would go in that direction at all with Muta and his music there, Gerard.
Yeah, well, at least, I mean, they didn't recycle like the theme of some other Japanese wrestler and just give it to him or something like that, And I guess I should ask you this since you brought it up, but have you ever covered the Great Kabuki's theme on this show?
Not yet, no.
So his theme, Yankee Station, I had just heard, because he came out on the Muta retirement show, and I hadn't heard that song in years. And I'm like, this is a real banger. So you should cover it sometime.
All right, duly noted there, yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the topic of WCW here, those later WCW themes I mentioned, they were interchangeable among the Japanese wrestlers at the time. And also, later on, he would use Tear It Up, the NWO B-Team theme, of course. But also, you mentioned 2000 WCW, he was a member of the Dark Carnival stable with Vampiro and the ICP, which means that he had two ICP songs as his themes, Take It and Assassins, which are very different than Luminous Forces and other Muta themes in a lot of ways, for sure. But, yeah, Great Muta down to clown, apparently. So there you go. So Muta returns to Japan in 1990, and eventually he wins the IWGP title and all that stuff, and we get the first New Japan Muta theme. This is Osamu Suzuki, again, with a song simply called Muta.
Muta. Muta. Muta. Muta. Muta.
Spoke of iconic themes earlier. This is another one. I mean, this is, I think, the iconic Great Muta theme by a long shot. Has that memorable intro with, I guess, some sort of stick thingy or whatever, and the demonic voice, Muta, Muta, the Great Muta. Then you have the strings come in, which, if I may confess something here, it took me way too long to realize that this is just a remake of Holdout. It's the exact same melody as Holdout, but done on strings. and it's the same guy doing both songs as well. Like, it's so obvious in hindsight, I'm embarrassed by it, but yeah, this is Holdout Great Muta version, Gerard.
Yeah, and I think sort of like the spooky elements they added to it, because they sort of really played into it, because, you know, once they bring Great Muta into Japan, he sort of gets more spooky elements, like he's a demon, and like the matches with like Hakushi and Liger and everything like that. So I think it's sort of good. Not that I like spooky characters at all. I was obviously never like an Undertaker guy, but the changes to the theme fit the character that they were going for.
Oh yeah, I mean, this absolutely leads more into the supernatural side of the character for sure. I mean, because yeah, he's supposed to be like a demon from hell apparently, and the intro sounds sort of like a summoning ritual.
Yep.
At least to me it does. And you have the strings in there too, which are very austere, and the "boom" sound effect, which is also pretty spooky. And yeah, I mean, like Luminous Forces, it's a creepy song too. But when you see Muta come out in Japan, and he has these super elaborate costumes and the mask and all that, and he takes it off and he spits the mist out in the air, he looks like a demon. He does. And it's all very effective in portraying him as not just a wrestler, but as a scary character, Gerard.
Yep, definitely. And I think it's just sort of like, again, much like Holdout, and this is the theme that was mostly used in Noah when he was the Great Muta, again, appealing to that nostalgic crowd.
Mm-hmm. And it still works too. I mean, especially nowadays with Muta just looking even more like a monster, just hobbling down to the ring with no knees. It still works as a creepy theme there for Gerard, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then with like sort of because he sort of took the old Muta theme and then had like the new Muta mask.
Right, yeah. So, in the mid-90s, Muto changes his song from Holdout to Triumph, and funny enough, Muta also changes his song around the same time period. This new theme is by Taketa Magic Orchestra, and it's called Great Muta Concerto. So two notable things about this song. One, they upped the creepy factor in the intro with the thunder, the evil groaning, the evil laughter, and all that. And two, much like how the song Muta is the Great Muta version of Holdout, this is the Great Muta version of Triumph. It's the same band, the same melody, the same riff, just done in the Muta style with the traditional instrumentation and all that. So they do it again here, Gerard, the same pattern.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of like a cool way to go, because I think I'm not always in love with the Great Muta character, but I think the most interesting balance they got there sort of in the early to mid 90s when he was bouncing back and forth between Great Muta and Keiji Mutoh in New Japan, because, you know, they took it wasn't just a gimmick for like shows like I said, like the Hakushi match and the Liger match, but like when he came back to Japan after that excursion, it would have been starting in 92, they really pushed him hard as the Great Muta, and he won his first IWGP title not as Keiji Mutoh but as Muta. And he won the NWA title, World Heavyweight title, as the Great Muta. So, you know, that sort of interplay, I think that was the most fascinating Great Muta era for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, what's fascinating about this is the change in tone it gives, because, I mean, it makes sense when you get rid of hold out and switch over to Triumph, you would do the same for Muta and his theme. The consequence being that you're kind of changing up the tone of what a Muta theme is, I think, because like before it was creepy and austere, now it's much more modern and a little bit more zippy sounding. Even though it still has scary elements or whatever in there, the actual body of the song isn't necessarily scary sounding. The production doesn't have that feel to it anymore, really. And I don't think any of the songs after this one have that, overarching creepiness to it either, really, Gerard.
No, not at all. And I think that the other sort of songs are sort of victims of circumstance, I guess we could say.
Mm-hmm. I guess, yeah. I mean, the issue, I think, with Triumph is the melody doesn't lend itself to being overtly sinister. Like, Hold Out, you can make that sound evil and menacing. Triumph is such an uplifting melody that, even through the Muta lens, it's hard to really feel scared by it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But I still think probably Muta's second best theme.
So the last Muta New Japan theme before we made the jump to All Japan, much like Outbreak, is also by NJP Unit. Funny how that keeps happening. This is called Muta Skyscraper. Now this one does make me laugh, because it starts off in a typical spooky Muta way, with the sound effects and the disembodied voice and all that, and then all of a sudden it takes a big left turn into techno Muta, with glow sticks galore. I mean it's a good song, don't get me wrong, but it's also just a real sharp departure from Great Muta Concerto, and especially from Muta and Luminous Forces, Gerard, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, by the time I forgot this theme even existed, because sort of like after 96, 97, his last couple years in New Japan, he doesn't really bring out the Great Muta as much as he used to. Once he leaves the NWO, there was only a couple of times, and so it's sort of like just the forgotten Muta era, because there wasn't really that much Muta at that time.
Mm-hmm, right. But still, I mean, like we said with Outbreak, it's around the time of big changes with Muto and his career and all that. And, when he shaved his head, he changed up the Muta look too. He started wearing the mask and the paint together. And It's also around the time he did the jump to All Japan, of course. So, as silly as it is to think of Great Muta at a rave, bopping around, it does still line up with the big changes going on elsewhere, I think, in his career, Gerard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he was clearly wanting to evolve the Muta character, but I don't think that will necessarily landed.
Right. It's a very strange song, I agree, yeah. And the title, too, is funny, Muta Skyscraper, because it just makes me think of Great Muta having his own evil skyscraper, in a dark city somewhere. It just comes to mind for me. So
do you think he would trap? Do you think he would trap The Rock in the skyscraper? If he
had one? Right, yeah. Well, there's the story that they offered The Rock a lot of money for Muto's last match, for him to be the opponent. So it all kind of lines up nicely there, Gerard, I think.
Do you think that if The Rock had made that retirement match, they would have done a mini movie where the Great Muta traps The Rock in the skyscraper? Like the White Castle of Fear.
That would have been great. That would have been worth every penny I think they paid him. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So Muta's main All Japan theme during that run is by Heart Blow Band. How about that? This is called Muta Praise Bloom. So I think this is my favorite Great Muta theme, actually, if I'm being honest. I love this one a lot. Has the creepy intro, has the sustained, shrieking keyboard notes, I like the pacing to it as well, and it manages to be modern and robust in production, while also still having this kind of haunting, mystical quality about it, in a way. So, it's not necessarily creepy, it's more like overall just badass and ominous, I guess, Gerard. But it's a great song, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and like I was saying, like the Muta character was evolving and not in the greatest of directions, but he sort of course corrected, I think, in the mid 2000s when he started using the Great Muta character a lot more in All Japan. He'd go on to have a Triple Crown reign as the Great Muta and everything, and the masks he would wear and the pants he would wear got better looking and everything like that, because I think some of those early like masked Mutas looked quite awkward and everything like that. So I think this is sort of like, obviously his body was breaking down, although there was a couple of matches in the late others as Muta that I dug. I recall a good one he had against Suwama, but at least as the character and as the aura, this is a return to form, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I'm being honest, actually, I think I prefer, bald mask Muta more than, just hair and paint Muta, because, I mean, those masks are some of the coolest looking masks I've ever seen, and there's a lot of them, too. He has a lot of different masks. There's, like, Pirate Muta and Buffalo Skull Muta and Face Hugger Muta and all that stuff. So, yeah, I prefer latter stage Muta where he went to, the masks and all that, and, but that's just me, so, and when I grew up, so there you go, but, so the last few Muta themes we'll get to here are ones that he had in America in recent years. The first one is when he went to TNA in 2014 during the TNA Wrestle One relationship. This is the year they did Bound for Glory in Cork and Hall, of course. This is by Dale Oliver, and it's called East of the Orient. To laugh again, because right off the bat we get the gong, just so on the nose there. I did laugh at that, and much like with Muta Skyscraper, there's an interesting combination of things going on here. On the one hand, we have the traditional East Asian music here, of course. On the other hand, we have like a hip-hop beat driving the song. MC Muta over here, for God's sake. So I guess kudos to Dale Oliver for not just doing a completely stereotypical Asian music song and going for something that's a little bit sinister sounding and has a little bit more of a fresh spin on things with the hip-hop beat, Gerard, I guess.
I suppose, but to me, you're getting into like, I'll just be blunt. Like, to me, this is a forgettable theme from a forgettable relationship. How many people remember anything about the Impact Wrestle One relationship other than maybe Taz?
Yeah, him and Andy Wu, his boy Andy Wu there, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still very stereotypical, okay? The song is called East of the Orient, for God's sake. But, look, like with WCW, it's just what you expect at this point with American wrestling companies. It is what it is. That said, I still like the song. I can't help it. There's not much to it, of course, but it did get my toes a tapping, Gerard. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, in that case, it did its job.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it was still, I think, better than Sonata and his TNA theme when he was there.
Oh, yes,
which,
I remember that.
I believe was called Japan Rising Sun. So, again, very on the nose and, unfortunately, very par for the course when it came to Japanese wrestling themes in America. So, here you go. But But the last Muta theme here, and the last theme of the episode overall, is one that debuted last year when Muta made his appearance in AEW at Rampage Grand Slam. This is by Mikey Ruckus featuring Dylan Edwards. It's called The Stand. It's funny, Muta only used this song once, and it wasn't even for a match, it was for a run-in, and yet, listening to it on its own, this song rocks. I mean, I think we're long past the point of Muta and his themes, being creepy, but instead, it's very epic, like a lot of Muta themes are, and it has the big metal guitars in there and the orchestration mixed together. It has really good drumming, too. So I think despite the very, very brief tenure of the song, I think it's pretty good, Gerard.
Yeah, I do too. Almost, I hate to say this, but almost wasted on Muta because it was only ever going to be a one shot. But when I watched that episode, I think this Rampage came out and everything like that, and I didn't think of anything of it at the time, but I was listening to this because you sent me the file, and I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty good, and I think Mikey Ruckus deserves credit for trying to do something different with Muta. Like not going not just the stereotypical Japanese route, but like not just going a stereotypical spooky route either.
Yeah, I would describe it as like the most cinematic Muta theme, I guess, especially with the strings.
He's like a super villain or something in a movie, maybe.
Right, yeah, which is very much a Muta quality all throughout his career. He very much has that over-the-top cinematic way about him, obviously. It's just funny to think about like the growth from over 30 years ago where you had Luminous Forces, which just sounds so, simple and basic. And then as time goes on, the Muta themes get busier and busier. And even the short-lived ones like this, they just kept, upping the ante there, Gerard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of just a strange but very welcome evolution to cap things off, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it was also just nice to see him and Sting together again after all those years. Because of their just huge relationship and history together. So, and that led, of course, to the last Muta match a month or so ago. So, it was great to see them, be together again with the nostalgia of it all.
Absolutely. I mean, I just really had of all the things in the Muta countdown, which I could go on, like we could do a whole other podcast with me ranting about it. The Sting and the Muta stuff I thought was the highlight for me.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, those were the Keiji Mutoh / Great Muta themes, and again, there are a bunch more we could have done. Not just themes, but like album songs that were never really themes to begin with, but still, I mean, there's stuff like Muta Galaxy, there's Muta Roman, there's Muta Muso, Muta the Cereal, Muta the Coloring Book, and on and on and on it goes, but regardless, we definitely had our fill of Muto / Muta themes today here, Gerard. And I know we kind of zipped through it at a nice brisk pace there, but look, like we said, after the first couple of themes, there's not really much to sink your teeth into in terms of deep analysis, so it is what it is, but still it was a lot of fun, I think, Gerard, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you have nearly 40-year career to cover, and you have this guy changing his theme every couple of years on 2 different continents. So, I mean, I think this was absolutely a great cross-section of Muto's career and the key themes, and really the key themes that I'm not necessarily saying every listener of the show would have heard all of them, but definitely the ones that they would be most likely to have encountered during their fandom.
Mm-hmm, definitely. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Music of the Mat. Thank you so much for listening. And Gerard, thank you again for being here. You braved it out with your sickness, and we all got through it okay with our voices and our knees intact, thank God. So there you go.
Yeah, my knees are doing just fine.
Any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
Yeah, so listen to the Emerald Flow Show on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We're on Twitter at Emerald Flow Show. We cover All Japan and Noah, and sometimes maybe some DDT, and if 01 makes tape, we'll do that. And, but this coming out on Tuesday, hopefully we'll have an episode covering the Muto retirement show a couple days after this podcast drops. So be on the lookout for that.
All right, and Music of the Mat is, of course, also part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find all the great shows on there at voicesofwrestling.com. Follow the show on Twitter at Music of the Mat. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew T. Rich. voicesofwrestling.com/Discord for all discussions and comments. voicesofwrestling.com/donate. For any donations, just click the big donate button beneath the name Music of the Mat. If you donate, hey, thanks so much. You're awesome. And of course, rate, review, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many other places. Gerard, thank you again, and I'll see you around.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, for Gerard Di Trolio, I'm Andrew Rich, and I'll see you next time on Music of the Mat. Take care, guys.
Music of the Mat is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Welcome to BreezeLine, where the sky's the limit thanks to better internet. With lightning-fast speeds up to 1 gig, you can game like a boss, stream like a pro, and watch like there's no tomorrow. Stream, watch, post, send, and trend. Do it all with our fiber-powered network, bringing you reliable, fast internet. Welcome to BreezeLine. Visit breezeline.com for latest offers. Service subject to availability. New customers in select areas only. Visit breezeline.com for details.